Mortal Kombat 4 for Nintendo 64. Actually, I'm quite disappointed they didn't call it Mortal Kombat 64. Figured, why not? Everyone else was doing it at the time, but I digress. So after 3 games of digitized actors filling your gameplay screens, the 4th major entry in the Mortal Kombat series made the jump to the 3rd dimension to begin a reconfiguration of the franchise that didn't quite pan out. Not quite as warmly received as previous entries in the series, MK4 failed to bring the series to new heights, and as a result of this, as well as a number of other missteps taken along the way, led to the Mortal Kombat name languishing in relative obscurity until 2002's Deadly Alliance game came along and provided mild interest in the series, to put it mildly, I guess. My first, and for the longest time only, exposure to Mortal Kombat 4 was at the arcades back in 1997 when it first came out. When I played the game for the first time, I thought, it's alright. Same game as before, only with more polygons and stuff. Bit faster, I guess, nothing really special, and that's about it. It was a game that I thought was okay, but not much more than that. And it wouldn't be until a decade or so later, when I managed to procure a copy of the game for N64, that I got to play this game for the first time in years. And then just recently I got to play the Game Boy Color version, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Mortal Kombat 4 takes place after the first 3 games of the series, where the participating combatants must put up with or assist in the machinations of the fallen elder god, Shinnok, who has escaped from the Nether Realm to wreak havoc everywhere else. As it turns out, Shinnok is one of 15 combatants you get to play with in Mortal Kombat 4, a nice balance between classic legacy characters such as Liu Kang and your usual band of ninjas, and newbie characters such as Fujin and Reiko and aforementioned end boss Shinnok. And it's fairly safe to say that he's not the most imposing end boss ever conceived. He's basically Old Man Shang Tsung from the original Mortal Kombat, except without the cool morphing effects or flaming skull projectiles. And that wasn't a random comparison either, because the home versions of Mortal Kombat 4 tossed in Goro from the first Mortal Kombat as a sub-boss to Shinnok, and as expected, he's pretty much an asshole. Fortunately, you can play as said asshole along with additional secret character Noob Saibot through secret means that you could probably find elsewhere. Now, Mortal Kombat 4 may look like 3D polygons and stuff, but at its core, it's yet another offshoot of Mortal Kombat 3. The control setup is pretty much the same as the previous game: 2 punches, 2 kicks, a block and run button. You're given a choice of 1 of 5 combat towers to challenge, though pressing start will rotate the tower to present you with a different set of challengers, which is rather nice. You still have the whole running dial-a combo stuff and combat codes for 2-player games. It works about as well as you'd expect, for better or worse. So if you didn't care for Mortal Kombat 3 and its dial-a combo stuff, then there's little in Mortal Kombat 4 that will change your mind. Despite the 3rd dimension contributing to the game's visual style, combat is largely played out in 2 dimensions. The only aspects to 3D in terms of practicality is the sidestep you could execute with the trigger buttons in order to avoid a timely projectile or other attack, but beyond that, you're just getting some funky camera angles for victory poses and fatalities. There are some new bits added to the mix, such as a new bone breaker grapple move where you grab your opponent and break their bones in an often silly visual, accompanied by some cheesy crunching sound effects. Each fighter also has a weapon that they can pull out to provide a bit more reach and attack power, so long as it's not knocked out of their hands, that is, which can happen very easily. And speaking of weapons, some arenas have rocks and stuff on the ground that can be picked up and tossed at their opponents, providing even more attack options. In terms of moves, each fighter has an assortment of special moves and 2 fatality finishers, with the occasional pit fatality in a couple stages, so pretty much back to basics on that front, pretty much. No babalities, no friendships or brutalities, nothing so fundamentally stupid or ridiculous, except for the actual fatalities themselves. The gameplay, even with all the additions and stuff, is on par with that of the previous game, and controls work well enough that you shouldn't have too much trouble pulling off special moves or even finishers if you know how to pull them off. And if you don't, well, there's the practice mode where you can learn all your moves, which is a nice feature. It would have been nice if the moves list was also available in other modes, but baby steps, I suppose. Again, if you didn't care for the Mortal Kombat 3 formula, MK4 might not be your cup of tea, since it doesn't stray too far from what came before, but then again, who knows, stranger things have happened. The game boasts 15 playable characters to choose from, a mix of classic faces to go along with some new future classics, so you have that nice balance of revisiting old favorites while trying some new ones, some of whom seem somewhat derivative of what came before. In addition to the main arcade mode and the aforementioned practice mode, you also have a tournament mode, a team battle mode, and an endurance mode. Of course, if you have an N64 memory pack, you could save your settings and high scores and stuff, which is a nice convenience. In terms of visuals, the jump to 3D has not been kind to Mortal Kombat 4, as the graphics are considerably primitive even by the standards of 1997, when you already had 3D fighters such as Tekken, Virtua Fighter, and hell, even that Street Fighter EX game that looked somewhat better. Sure, there are alternate costumes, unique camera perspectives for fatalities, and the various arenas looked alright, but the character animation looks stilted, janky, uneven, unnatural. I mean, the models themselves look alright, I guess, but I don't know. Even back in the day, I thought the only real good visual assets in number 4 were the character portraits, and the rest of it was just meh. The N64 version apparently smooths out the rougher edges of the models, and that makes it only look slightly better, but not by much. Unlike the PlayStation and PC ports of the game, the N64 version of Mortal Kombat 4 features the original arcade endings, where they use the in-game engine to depict everything that's going on, for better or worse. The disc-based versions had full-blown full-motion video clips with rendered CG to make it look somewhat less bad, but I don't know. The endings in Mortal Kombat 4 in general were all kinds of not good, but whatever. Sound-wise, meh. You have character shouts and gibberish. They sound alright. The sound effects are the usual collection of Mortal Kombat stock, punchy, kicky, blood-curdling sound effects, and they're okay. The soundtrack is, to be quite honest, forgettable, which is rather surprising because Mortal Kombat 1 had good tunes. Mortal Kombat 2 had good tunes, and you could probably make a case for Mortal Kombat 3 even. But personally, MK4's only real standout track is the Fighter Select tune. And I'll let you make of that what you will, cause I've got nothing else to say in that regard. Mortal Kombat 4 is another one of those cases where your mileage may vary, but otherwise is that odd middle ground between the classic digitized 2D style and the later 3D style that would emerge from the whole Deadly Alliance Deception Armageddon era of games. Honestly, for what it's worth, I thought that was a pretty respectable fighter. It's not a drastic departure from what came before, that was still yet to come, and in some respects it may be a bit too much like the previous game to not be worth the effort, but I don't know. Mortal Kombat 4 has its moments, and all in all, it isn't too bad.